It's vice versa. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that I always say about me. When I get to sit there and I get to enjoy.
That's ridiculous, man. I would just let go of that belt. You know, it's just disgusting. I told my son to be a real man, you know, and to take his losses like the way he takes his wins.
Shakur Stevenson just got caught with drugs in his system after beating Teofimo Lopez, and this scandal is about to tear boxing apart. We're not talking about some minor violation here. We're talking about a fighter who stepped into the ring with banned substances flowing through his veins, threw hands with one of the sport's cleanest competitors, and somehow everyone's acting like this is business as usual. But here's what nobody's telling you about this mess, and by the time I'm done breaking this down, you'll understand exactly why this isn't just about one failed drug test. This is about the complete collapse of integrity in professional boxing.
At the moment, the British Boxing Board of Control aren't. So we have to speak with them, deal with the legal situation and see where it lands. And this is quite fresh. Obviously, I don't even think it's 30 minutes. I think it's more like 10 or 15 minutes since that. And
Eddie Hearn just confirmed what insiders have been whispering about for weeks. And the timing of this revelation is absolutely wild. The news broke fresh, right when people were starting to accept Shakur's victory as legitimate. And now the entire boxing world is scrambling to figure out what the hell actually happened in that ring. Think about this for a second. Teofimo Lopez trained clean, ate clean, lived clean for months preparing for this fight. Meanwhile, his opponent was apparently running a chemistry experiment in his own body. And here's the kicker, the fight was allowed to proceed anyway. Someone knew. Someone had to know that Shakur's samples were questionable, but they let him compete while Teofimo walked into that ring completely unaware that he wasn't facing a level playing field. The investigation is ongoing, but the damage to the sport's credibility, that's already done.
I don't know why they like this kid a lot, man. You know, no matter what they saying or whatever it is.
Teofimo Lopez SR is not holding back, and honestly, his anger is completely justified. He's watching his son's career get derailed by someone who couldn't even be bothered to fight clean, and the boxing establishment is bending over backwards to protect the golden boy. Here's what's really eating at Team Lopez. They prepared for this fight the right way. Strict diet, disciplined training, no shortcuts, no excuses. They showed up ready to prove themselves against a highly rated opponent, and now they're finding out that opponent had chemical assistance. Lopez SR is pointing out something that should be obvious to everyone. If Shakur needed substances to perform at that level, then what we saw in the ring wasn't his real ability. It was enhanced performance, plain and simple. And while everyone was praising Shakur's technique and ring IQ, Teofimo was out there fighting someone who had an unfair advantage from the opening bell.
Positive, and was still gonna let him fight. Still was gonna let him fight.
Dylan White fought after he tested.
Yeah. Who? Dylan White. After testing positive, I didn't even know that. Bro, he's a snake.
Gervonta Tank Davis is absolutely losing his mind over this situation, and he's saying what every clean fighter in the sport is thinking. Tank knows how hard it is to compete at the elite level without any help, and seeing Shakur get a pass while testing positive is driving him crazy. But here's what Tank is really exposing with his outrage. This isn't an isolated incident. This is a pattern of favoritism that's been building in boxing for years. The promoters have their golden boys, the networks have their preferred storylines, and when those interests align, suddenly failed drug tests become minor inconveniences instead of career-ending scandals. Tank is calling out the system that allowed Shakur to compete while dirty, and he's making it clear that this kind of preferential treatment is exactly what's wrong with modern boxing. Clean fighters are getting screwed while connected fighters get protected, and Tank is done pretending that's acceptable.
Result. I'm just chucking out there. If depending on the amount, that would depend on how long it remains in your system. So from what I can gather, if you've taken very limited amounts, very little amounts, it could stay in your system depending on the nature of the test. If it was a saliva test, if it was a urine test, if it was a hair test, it's going to stay in your system a lot longer. But
the technical breakdown from experts like Liam Goff is revealing just how serious this violation actually is, and the details are absolutely damning. Even trace amounts of performance-enhancing substances can provide significant advantages in a sport where milliseconds and millimeters determine victory or defeat. Improved reaction time, enhanced focus, increased pain tolerance, these aren't minor benefits we're talking about. These are game-changing advantages that can turn a competitive fight into a one-sided beatdown. And here's what's really wild about this situation. Shakur was apparently allowed to compete despite officials knowing there were questions about his test results. That means Teofimo Lopez stepped into the ring not knowing he was facing an opponent who might have chemical assistance. The competitive integrity that boxing depends on was completely compromised, and somehow Shakur's team managed to keep this quiet until after the fight was over and the damage was done.
Are applied unevenly.
You know, everybody who gets caught taking drugs should get a fucking 10-year ban, man. Fuck everybody. I don't understand why we have to fucking footsie around this shit.
Eddie Hearn exposes the audacity of Shakur Stevenson.
The double standard that's being exposed here is absolutely mind-blowing, and it's making clean fighters question why they even bother following the rules. Look at how this is being handled compared to other fighters who have faced similar situations. When lesser-known fighters test positive, their careers get destroyed overnight. They lose purses, face suspensions, and get blacklisted by major promoters. But when a rising star with major promotional backing fails a test, suddenly everyone becomes very understanding about contaminated supplements and honest mistakes. The hypocrisy is so blatant that even casual fans are starting to notice. Teofimo Lopez followed every rule, respected every regulation, and prepared with complete integrity, but he's the one whose career is suffering while Shakur gets sympathy and excuses from the boxing media. This isn't just unfair to Teofimo, it's a slap in the face to every fighter who's ever sacrificed and struggled to compete cleanly at the highest level.
But do you know what is the absolute liberty about all of this? Is the way that he, after he failed that test on Monday, texts me, texts you, to say, I swear I've not taken anything. This is sabotage. This is just a system against me. Fuck off. It's an absolute...
Shakur's response to getting caught has been absolutely pathetic, and his denial strategy is only making this scandal worse. Instead of taking responsibility and showing some accountability, he's claiming sabotage and acting like he's the victim in this situation. But here's what's really insane about his reaction. He's asking people to believe that someone secretly drugged him without his knowledge, and he had no idea that banned substances were in his system. That's either the most elaborate conspiracy in boxing history, or it's a desperate lie from someone who got caught cheating and can't handle the consequences. Meanwhile, Teofimo Lopez and his team are watching this circus play out, while their legitimate victory gets overshadowed by controversy they had nothing to do with. The fact that Shakur is still trying to claim innocence while the evidence piles up against him shows exactly the kind of character we're dealing with here, and it's not pretty.
High-profile guys getting caught, and it's just horrible. Genuinely, and I know you were about saying, without going fucking fully mental here, I just believe we were caught with any performance-enhancing drug.
Carl Frampton's reaction to this news is absolutely brutal, and he's not mincing words about how dangerous this situation really was. When Frampton says this makes him sick, he's speaking for every fighter who's ever stepped into the ring trusting that their opponent was competing fairly. Boxing isn't a game where you can afford to give your opponent any kind of advantage. This is a sport where people die, where careers end in an instant, where the margin between victory and catastrophic injury is razor thin. And Shakur Stevenson apparently entered that environment with performance-enhancing substances in his system, putting Teofimo Lopez at risk without his knowledge or consent. The fact that this was allowed to happen exposes serious failures in the testing and regulatory system that's supposed to protect fighters. Frampton's outrage isn't just about competitive fairness, it's about fighter safety and the basic trust that makes professional boxing possible. When that trust gets violated, the entire sport suffers.
It's frightening for the sport. It's not that it's bad, it's frightening. But listen, this isn't boxing as a sport, this is the circus.
Tony Bellew's commentary on this mess perfectly captures how absurd this entire situation has become, and his frustration is echoing throughout the boxing community. Bellew has been around long enough to see how these scandals typically play out, and he knows that the real victim here isn't getting the support he deserves. While everyone debates Shakur's excuses and explanations, Teofimo Lopez's incredible performance is being completely overshadowed by circumstances beyond his control. Bellew is pointing out something that should be obvious to everyone. When you allow fighters to compete while using banned substances, you turn professional boxing into a circus instead of a legitimate sport. The fans who pay to watch these fights deserve better than this kind of controversy, and the clean fighters who dedicate their lives to competing fairly deserve better than having their achievements tainted by opponents who can't follow the rules. This situation is making boxing look like a joke, and veterans like Bellew are fed up with watching the sport's credibility get destroyed by preventable scandals.
If it's somehow in his system from other means, I know that might sound crazy, but I guess we have to give him the benefit of the doubt, do we? I'd like to think we do. But yeah, this is wild. Honestly.
The explanations being offered for Shakur's positive test are getting more ridiculous by the day, and even casual fans are starting to see through the nonsense. Contaminated supplements, tainted food, accidental exposure, these excuses might work for recreational drug users, but professional athletes are supposed to be held to a higher standard. When you're making millions of dollars to compete at the elite level, it's your responsibility to know exactly what's going into your body. There's no excuse for accidentally ingesting banned substances when your career and your opponent's safety depend on clean competition. But here's what's really telling about these explanations. They're all designed to make Shakur look like a victim, instead of someone who failed to meet his professional obligations. Meanwhile, Teofimo Lopez is watching his hard-earned victory get questioned because his opponent couldn't be bothered to properly manage his supplement intake. The narrative is being twisted to protect Shakur's reputation, while completely ignoring the impact this has on his opponent and the sport as a whole.
I think now you won't know what stays for 2 weeks. I don't know, why would you take it knowing there's a possibility that it's going to be in your system? And why would you take it for our sport?
Johnny Nelson's analysis of this situation is spot on, and he's highlighting something that every professional athlete should understand about personal responsibility. When you step into that ring, you're not just representing yourself, you're representing the integrity of the entire sport. Shakur Stevenson's reckless approach to supplement management didn't just put his own career at risk, it compromised the competitive balance of a major fight and put his opponent in a dangerous situation. Nelson knows how much discipline and sacrifice it takes to compete at the championship level, and seeing someone throw that all away for shortcuts is absolutely infuriating. Lopez did everything right, followed every protocol, respected every rule, and his reward was getting matched up against someone who apparently couldn't be bothered to compete cleanly. The fact that this fight was allowed to proceed despite questions about Shakur's test results shows a complete breakdown in the systems that are supposed to protect fighters and preserve competitive integrity. This isn't just about one failed drug test. It's about whether professional boxing can maintain any credibility as a legitimate sport.
Incredibly shocking. When any fighter fails a performance-enhancing drug test, it is incredibly shocking and disappointing.
Adam Catterall's reaction perfectly captures the shock and disappointment that's spreading throughout the boxing world, and his disbelief is completely understandable. When you invest emotionally in a sport, when you follow fighters' careers and get excited about big matchups, discovering that one of the participants was competing under the influence of banned substances feels like a betrayal. Catterall has covered enough boxing to know how rare and special truly competitive fights are at the elite level, and seeing this one get tainted by a failed drug test is heartbreaking for someone who genuinely loves the sport. But here's what makes this situation even worse. Teofimo Lopez's brilliant performance is now being overshadowed by circumstances that had nothing to do with his preparation or execution. Instead of celebrating his skills and determination, everyone's talking about his opponent's drug test and what it means for the result. This is exactly the kind of controversy that drives fans away from boxing and makes the sport look unprofessional compared to other major athletic competitions.
Blown away by what it is, recreational drugs, cocaine. You just go, how has that got in your system? He's got some explaining to do for one, and you think with what you had on the line and with what you was, what was coming up for you, and the opponent you had in front of you, you just go like cocaine in your.
Spencer Oliver's commentary about the specific substances involved in this scandal adds another layer of absurdity to an already unbelievable situation. We're not just talking about performance-enhancing drugs here. We're apparently dealing with recreational substances that have no business being anywhere near a professional athlete's system during training camp. The presence of cocaine or similar substances completely undermines any argument about accidental contamination or innocent mistakes. These aren't supplements that got mislabeled or protein powders that got contaminated during manufacturing. These are illegal drugs that require deliberate choices and conscious decisions to consume. Oliver's shock is completely justified because this revelation makes Shakur's situation exponentially worse and raises serious questions about his judgment, professionalism, and commitment to his career. Meanwhile, Teofimo Lopez's dedication and discipline look even more impressive in comparison, but his achievement is still being overshadowed by this circus that he had absolutely nothing to do with creating.
And I'll wait and see what happens. I mean, I don't know the findings. We don't know. I haven't seen statements really. I don't know. It's come out in the.
Adam Smith's frustration with how this information became public exposes another serious problem with boxing's regulatory system, and his confusion reflects what fans are feeling about this entire mess. The fact that news of Shakur's failed drug test leaked through social media instead of being properly handled through official channels shows just how dysfunctional the oversight system really is. Smith has been around boxing long enough to know how these situations should be managed, and seeing it handled so unprofessionally is adding insult to injury for everyone involved. Teofimo Lopez deserves to know whether he's facing a clean opponent. Fans deserve to know whether they're watching a legitimate competition, and the sport deserves better than having major scandals break through Twitter leaks and unofficial sources. The chaotic way this information came to light makes everyone involved look incompetent and raises serious questions about what other problems might be getting covered up or mishandled behind the scenes.
How can he give a sample and then a B sample and they both come back positive for a banned substance?
Duke McKenzie's analysis of the testing process removes any doubt about what actually happened here, and the scientific evidence is absolutely damning. Both A and B samples testing positive isn't a clerical error or a laboratory mistake. It's definitive proof that banned substances were present in Shakur Stevenson's system. McKenzie understands the testing protocols well enough to know that getting positive results from both samples means there's no room for excuses or alternative explanations. The science doesn't lie, and the science says Shakur was dirty when he fought Teofimo Lopez. But here's what makes this situation even more frustrating. Despite having concrete evidence of a violation, Shakur's victory is still being recognized in the record books, while Teofimo's incredible performance gets treated like a footnote to someone else's scandal. The disconnect between what the evidence shows and how the situation is being handled perfectly illustrates everything that's wrong with modern boxing's approach to drug testing and enforcement.
Reporting on it this morning, I'm just slowly coming up. One of my colleagues, Jeremy Wilson's doing it for the Telegraph. He's the drugs expert or the doping expert on the desk, and I think there was something like 14 supplements that he was using.
The revelations from Gareth A. Davies about the scope of Shakur's supplement use are absolutely staggering and completely change how we have to view this entire situation. 14 different supplements. That's not a training regimen, that's a pharmacy. When you're taking that many different products, especially from multiple sources, you're either completely reckless about what you're putting in your body or you're deliberately trying to mask or enhance certain substances. Either way, it shows a level of irresponsibility that has no place in professional boxing. While Teofimo Lopez was following a disciplined, clean preparation routine, his opponent was apparently running some kind of chemistry experiment that went horribly wrong. The scale of this supplement use makes it impossible to claim ignorance or accident, because managing 14 different products requires deliberate planning and systematic organization. Davies' reporting exposes just how deep this problem goes and raises serious questions about who else knew about Shakur's extensive supplement routine. This isn't just about one fighter making a mistake. This is about a systematic approach to preparation that prioritized shortcuts over integrity and put competitive fairness at risk. So here you have it, the most damaging drug scandal in recent boxing history, and it's completely destroyed any credibility Shakur Stevenson's victory might have had. Teofimo Lopez fought clean, trained hard, and gave everything he had against an opponent who was apparently chemically enhanced, and somehow the boxing world is still trying to figure out how to handle this mess. This isn't just about one fight or one failed drug test anymore. This is about whether professional boxing can maintain any legitimacy as a sport when its biggest stars can't even be trusted to compete fairly. The evidence is overwhelming, the double standards are obvious, and the impact on clean fighters like Teofimo is devastating. But here's my question for you, and I want you to really think about this. How many more scandals like this can boxing survive before fans completely lose faith in what they're watching? Do you think Teofimo Lopez got robbed of a legitimate victory? Or do you believe Shakur's excuses about contaminated supplements? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this debate is just getting started, and the sport needs fans who care enough to demand better. If this breakdown opened your eyes to what's really happening behind the scenes in professional boxing, smash that like button, subscribe for more content that cuts through the BS, and hit the notification bell because this story is far from over. I'll see you in the next one.